Welcome back to the Budget Archive. My name is Mitch. Today we have a deck with the damage output to compete with the best without breaking the bank. Getting straight into the deck list, we have Spirit of Fire, Diana level 1, Diana level 2, and Diana level 3. This deck is mainly a level 1 and 2 deck, however you can go into 3 if the game goes long enough. We have Flash Grenade. This is a good defensive card in the deck, that as long as your champion is distant, whenever you take damage this turn, prevent 3 of that damage. It also allows you to draw a card, so if you use Floating Memory to bring this out, you're going 1 up for the turn. And because this deck runs a lot of distant enablers, you're generally going to be able to use this. Foresight Lens, Glimpse 2, if your champion is distant, Glimpse 4. This is mainly for if you get to level 3, you bring this out, and then you're able to Glimpse start it and start Aether Calling the cards into your gun. Safeguard Amulet, perfect prevention for non-combat damage. Smoke Bombs. This is generally used when your opponent has a taunt unit out. So most of Diana's kit is around just doing one massive attack at your opponent. So if they have a taunt route, it can be a bit hard to get through that. So you bring Smoke Bombs out, give it stealth, allowing you to attack through. Terraforming. Again, just a defensive card that if your opponent's playing a lot of allies or attack-based actions, then you bring this out and they have to pay 2 for each attack they declare. Just allows you to get a bit more time and generally give you another turn. Chivarate Dream. I don't know if I said that correct. We'll just carry on. This is your main weapon in the deck. It is a 0-drop 1/3. Can be brought out with Diana level 1's on-enter ability. And has on attack, if there are exactly 3 Aether charge cards in the attacker's intent, this attack gets +3. So this whole way this deck is built is basically doing nothing on your first turn. At the end of your opponent's turn, giving your champion distant, and then leveling up with the cards that you put into memory, bringing this out, and then playing something during your recollection step to load into this, moving into your turn, and then loading another 2 Aether charge cards into your weapon during your turn, and attacking for generally in between 11 and 15 damage on turn 2 if you went first, which, if you get the perfect setup, can be a turn 2 kill. Salamander's Breath is another option for weapons to bring out. This says on attack, you may banish up to X fire element cards from your graveyard, where X is the number of Aether charge cards in your attacker's intent. This attack gets +1 for each card banished this way. This deck isn't super heavy in fire, so you're generally not going to be doing this a lot. This is mainly going to be a turn 3 or 4 bring out if you've played a few fire cards in there in your graveyard, and you're able to chuck a bunch of 1-drop, 1-attack Aether charge cards into this weapon, and then attack banishing 3 or 4 fire cards from your graveyard. Palladius Celestial Genesis. This is, if you go level 3, this is the only time you're going to be able to bring this out. And this is mainly there for the on-enter Glimpse 3. So then you can just load any Aether Calling cards into this straight away and attack for a bunch on your second turn as level 3. In the main deck, we have 4 of Aetheric Calibration. This just allows you to cycle through your deck and find the cards that you need, as well as being a 1-attack Aether charge card to go into a gun. Alacritas Huntress. This is a great card in the deck. Not only is it a 2/2 for 3, it has on-enter, reveal up to 1 Aether charge card from your hand. You may discard it or load it into an Aether Wing weapon you control. If you do draw a card, you're pretty much always going to be loading it into the weapon. And you can also, with this ability, reveal the advanced element Aether charge cards. So it's a good way to get a 2-attack card into your gun early on in the game. Backstep. Target unit becomes distant. Draw a card. Probably your best distant card in the deck. Charge the Soul. Deal 1 damage to target unit. Then you may load it into a weapon you control. Has Floating Memory as well. This is one of the ones that you generally don't want to have to use early on. But it's there for a ping damage if you need it. Evasive Maneuvers. Prevent the next 2 damage to be dealt to target unit this turn. If that unit is a ranger, it becomes distant. So you're generally going to use this on yourself, prevent some damage to yourself, and then make yourself distant for your next turn. However, this can be used on Alacritas Huntress to, if it's awake for some reason, you can give it distant, prevent 2 damage done to it, and then retaliate with it to kill whatever is attacking it. Mana Bolt Convergence. Until end of turn, you may activate target Aether Charge card in your graveyard, and then you may load it into target Aether Wing weapon you control. You generally use this with things like Ashwin Shot, which we'll get to soon, just allowing you to cycle them and use them over and over again without having to pay anything. Prudent Nook. Draw a card into your memory. You may load it into an Aether Wing weapon you control. Any card that replaces itself is good. Not much else to say about that. Reposition. Target unit becomes distant. It also has floating memory. This is probably one of your ideal turn ones, because you can play into your memory, play this, and then banish the 1 card from memory to level up. Then you have this in your graveyard as well with floating memory, so the next turn you go to level 2, you're not having to pay as much. Ashwin Shot. It's a 0-drop, 1 attack card that goes into an Aether Wing weapon you control. It also has class bonus until end turn target opponent can't recover. This is amazing against any of the Serene Spirits or any decks that like to play lots of heal cards. But yeah, it's a 0-drop card. Like, you can't go wrong with 0 drops. Blazing Cinder Charge. This is a slow speed card. However, it still fits in the deck. I do feel that if a better Fire Aether Charge card comes out in the future, it may replace this. But it's basically 3-drop, deal 3 damage to target champion. If your champion is leveled up this turn, you may load it and up to 2 Fire Aether Charge cards from your graveyard into an Aether Wing weapon you control. This is generally going to be a turn 3 play once you've gone to level 2. So you basically go to level 2, load a couple of hopefully advanced element cards from your hand or memory into the weapon, and then you go into your turn, use this, and you'll return a couple of the Fire Aether Charge cards that you used during your attack on the previous turn into your weapon. And then you're no longer going for that plus 3 damage, just going for as many cards into the weapon as possible. Flickering Cinder. Deal 1 damage to target unit, your champion becomes distant. If you don't have reposition, this is your next best option, because you gain that 1 damage onto your champion as well as becoming distant. This is actually one of the cards that's required in your starting hand in order to do the 15 damage on turn 2 kill, because you need that extra damage on them before you even go into your second turn. Infernal Mana Streak. Deal 2 damage to target unit. If your champion is distant, deal 3 damage to that unit instead. It's a 2-drop, and then it goes into an Aether Wing weapon you control. This is generally one of the ones you want to use on your turn, and the next card is the one you want to use during your recollection step, just because of the cost of them. However, if you don't have the next card, then this is a great one to use during your recollection. Deal 3 damage to your opponent's champion, and then loading it into the weapon. Mana Flare Barrage. Deal 2 damage to all units except for your champion. If your champion is distant, deal 3 damage to those units instead, and then load it into a weapon. It's a 5-drop, but gets 2 less, costs 2 less if you are a ranger, which of course in this deck we are. This is amazing board wipe. You're paying 3 to deal 3 damage to all your opponent's allies, and on turn 2, pretty much every single ally your opponent can play that can either intercept or taunt is going to be 3 health, with the exception of Ace and Protector. However, in that situation, you could use something like Flickering Cinder to deal 1 damage to the Aeson, and then play Mana Flare Barrage to kill it and anything else that's on the field. Constellation's Blessing. All the advanced element cards here aren't really here to be played as such. They are mainly here for Electritus Huntress and Diana level 2's ability, allowing them to be forced into a weapon before you are level 3. However, they can all be played once you get to level 3 if you get that far in the game. This is a 1-drop, draw a card, you may load it into an Aether Wing weapon you control. It's a 2-attack spell, and once you get to level 3 and you start loading 3-4 of these into a weapon at once, you end up doing a lot of damage at once. Guided Starlight. Your champion's next attack this turn gains unblockable, unless your opponent pays 3. Again, this gets through Taunt and Intercept, so it is a great card if your opponents put all their hand down in order to have something to stop you on the field. This gets past that and allows you to go for that 1-hit kill at the end. Side Reel Spell Shot. Also has Aether Calling, same as this Guided Starlight. This has Glimpse X. You may load it into an Aether Wing weapon you control. The important thing with this is that X can be 0. So if you have 2 or 3 of these in your hand when you go to level 3, you can just play 0 for all of them and then load them all into the weapon you control, with adding 6 damage to your total attack. So if you have the Celestial Genus weapon out, you're going to be doing 8 attack with that 1 attack. However, it is important to remember, if you don't glimpse with them, or if you just play them straight out, you are losing 3 cards out of your hand, so you need to make sure that you're able to win that turn. In the sideboard, we have Ranger Boots. Enters hindered, and on enter draw a card, and then you can tap it and banish it, and your champion becomes distant. It's a good card. I just felt that it wasn't quite good enough for the main board. As you were trying to do the turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 kills, often you don't have time for this to come out, be tapped, go next turn, wake it up, and then give yourself distant. And the deck itself has enough distant enablers to get around any problems you can have. Reflexor Ribbon. Pay 2, banish it, load target Aether Charge card from your graveyard into an Aether Wing weapon you control. Again, this is one of those regalia that I wanted in the main board, but I couldn't quite make it fit. And this is a great card to bring out if you are knowing that the game's going to go a little bit longer, so you can have time to bring it out, and then you can just force something from your graveyard into it. Especially if you use one of the advanced element cards already, you can use this to load that straight into the Aether Wing weapon you control, because you aren't actually activating it. Seeker's Aether Wing. I didn't quite think this was good enough for the main board. Terate Dream is just so good. However, I did think that this deck needed something against decks that play a lot of stealth and a lot of removal for weapons. So if you do find in game 1 that your opponent is easily able to remove your weapon, or is giving themselves stealth, you sideboard this in instead, and you're going to be going for a slightly longer game because you're not going to be able to do those massive turn 2. However, it is a lot safer to go this route. Aetheric Reforging. Banish up to 1 target card from a graveyard, then load it into an Aether Wing weapon you control. 2 drop, 1 attack. Decent card for the deck. So you're generally going to be brought in against decks that rely on Floating Memory, or decks that rely on Rending Flames for their kills. So you can banish a fire card or Floating Memory card from your opponent's graveyard. When you sideboard Sin, you're generally going to take out something like Prudent Look, just because Prudent Look isn't a requirement for the deck, it's just a nice to have. So it's a good thing to replace with. Fireworks Display. Deal 1 damage to all units target player controls until end of turn. If a unit that player controls would die, banish it instead. This is good into, mainly Merlin would probably be the main one I think of, but into decks that run a lot of fire allies that want them to be in their graveyard eventually to then use Rending Flames, or just decks that run a lot of Floating Memory allies. Just because deal 1 damage to the ally, kills a Library Witch, but then the replacement effect means that it goes to banishment, not graveyard, so they don't get the on-death effect. And for all the allies that have Floating Memory, you use this and then you follow it up with something like a Mana Flare Barrage, which will do 3 damage to all those allies as well. Killing them all, and instead of going to graveyard, they go to banishment, so your opponent doesn't have access to any of that Floating Memory, and all the fire allies go to banishment, so they don't have them in the graveyard to follow up with Rending Flames or anything along those lines. Before we get into the deck prices, I just wanted to talk about the fact that the starter deck cards are currently 95 cents each. I do believe over time these will come down as people start splitting up the decks and selling the singles off. However, the price of the deck is reflected by the fact that they are that as of this point. So I do believe this deck is a $30 deck, not a $40 deck. However, at this point, I've priced it as they are. Material deck comes in at $5.28. Main deck comes in at $31.28, and Sideboard comes in at $3.54, which brings us to a grand total of $40.10. So not quite $40, but close enough. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below what else you'd like to see. And don't forget to go over and check out the giveaway we currently have going on. Until next time, stay safe.